Hey up, and welcome to Corey's Corner. I've been sick the past few days. I don't know, like 2, 3 days. I've just been awful. Just like my right eye feels like it's about to pop out of my head. It's like it's too like the ball, the eyeball is too big for the socket. It doesn't make any sense, but that's how it feels. And that's the reason this video is out 2 days late. So I apologize for that. But we're back, at the recording studio or whatever, and I'm gonna make a video today to make up for the delay. I guess I'm going to make a video that I've wanted to make for a long time now, and that is a story time video, or really a collection of stories about my family. And my family is a bit weird, and I'll say this right now. Actually, I'll put a disclaimer here. If anyone from my family sees this video, I'm probably screwed either way, but I'm not going to give personal details away, obviously. I want to say, even though I do complain and stuff and it might sound bad, I do love my family, or most of them anyway, and so this is a pretty light-hearted video. Don't take this too seriously. But to understand my family, you need to understand that everything that happens in my family is kind of political. There's factionalism in my family. There's lots of different groups vying for influence and stuff, and there's a lot of rivalries and stuff, and just bad blood and just bitterness, really. It's quite childish, actually. The way I describe it might make it sound kind of not cool, but it makes it sound kind of interesting, families, British families going at war, kind of like Game of Thrones or something. It's nothing, no, I haven't even seen Game of Thrones, but it's nothing interesting like that. It's just basically a bunch of man children fighting with each other, or man, women, children, fighting with each other about stupid things and inheritance and pathetic stuff like that. And it's life is too short, do you know what I mean? And this is what I mean when I say I love most of my family. People talk about family relationships, and they're like, your family is given to you, and it's your friend. The term friends and family gets thrown around a lot, and it's you make friends, but you don't get to choose your family. A lot of people think family is very important, especially more traditional people who talk about, especially you see this a lot in the Red Pill. Andrew Tate probably talks about this a lot. He's like, oh, family's so important and stuff. I don't know if he's said that specifically. Believe it or not, I don't listen to Andrew Tate a lot, but I don't think family's that big of a deal. Like I said, I do love my family. I do like them, I guess. Maybe love is too strong of a word, but if someone in my family did something wrong to me, I wouldn't be sticking around just because they're in my family. And this has happened before, where people in my family have not done stuff wrong to me, but just I distance myself from people because I don't tolerate bad behavior, and I don't think you should either. And just because someone's in their family, it's not a free pass to be a dick, basically. So the first person I want to talk about is I don't know if I need to give names to these people or made up names. I'm just going to call this guy my uncle. I'm not related to this guy, and not even not by blood, not legally. I don't even know I don't actually know if anyone in my family is related to this guy, because I have grandparents and uncles and aunts and stuff who I'm not related to, but they are in my family. But then there's this guy, and this guy isn't even related to me in that way. I don't even know how this guy is a member of my family. But he's an older guy. He's in his 50s now. He doesn't really get invited out to family get-togethers and gatherings and stuff anymore because of his behavior, and I'm going to talk about that. So when he was younger, my mum actually, he's been I guess a member of the family for I don't know, a while now, 3 decades maybe. And my mum talked about when she was introduced to him, or when she met this guy. He was trying to join the Navy, and the thing about him, he's actually colorblind, this guy. And if you don't know, you can't join the Navy if you're colorblind, because obviously they're hoisting flags and stuff, and you need to be able to see what they mean, and you can't be, you need 20/20 vision. It's the same reason I can't join the army. Well, not the exact same reason, but I'm blind in one of my eyes, completely blind, can't see anything out of it, and my eyesight in the other eye isn't that good either, to be honest. So I couldn't join the army. I made a whole video about that, actually. I'll put that in the corner if you care. But to summarize, I was in the Army Cadets, which is the army but for kids, and I didn't stay for the actual army because I couldn't. A lot of people go to the Army Cadets and then they join the army later, but I couldn't do that because of my eye. In hindsight, it's definitely a good thing. I wouldn't join the army even if I could now, and I'm very glad that I didn't end up doing that. But I made a whole video about that. Go and watch that if you want. The army does actually kind of relate to him though, because I remember I told my family when I joined the cadets, and I didn't tell them about me leaving, because the way I left is I just basically stopped going. I didn't have an official reason to leave. I never officially quit, but my whole family thought I was still going. So when I'd go to these family gatherings and stuff, loads of people would grill me about the army, and they're like, "Oh, how's the army going?" and stuff, and I'd be like, "Yeah, it's good and stuff." And really, I wasn't in it anymore. It's these people who these men who get fired from their jobs, and they just don't tell their families, and they just go out to quote unquote work, and they just sit in like a parking lot for like 8 hours a day. That's basically what I was doing. I mean, not exactly, but you know what I mean. But yeah, this guy I'm talking about, this like 50-year-old guy, my quote unquote uncle. I need to give this guy a name. I'm gonna call this guy Bob, I guess. This guy Bob would just grill me all the time about it. He's like, so what unit in the army are you in and stuff? And I don't know, there are names for these, like the Irish Rifles and the Royal Grenadier and the Dragoons and stuff, and I don't know what all this shit is. I don't even remember what unit I was in, because I would just lie and tell him, oh, I'm in this unit, but I didn't like even know in the first place what unit I was in, so I couldn't even tell him. So I was just like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, well, how can you not know when you're in it and stuff? And like, I mean, I probably had a reputation as a kid, and probably still to this day, to be honest, of being very, I don't know, forgetful, I guess, if that's the right word. I mean, when I went to high school, everyone used to think I smoked weed, like, all the time, every day. Like, people would ask me, like, are you high right now? Just because of how I acted. And I never did. I never touched weed. That wasn't the case at all. But my blood pressure is probably very low. And I speak, like, in real life, I speak very slowly most of the time, especially with people who I don't want to be speaking to, which is most of my family, to be honest. I'm just a very mellow person, generally. It might be hard to believe from my videos, but that is who I am. So, me not knowing something like that, or me forgetting, it's not exactly out of character for me. I know some people would be like, oh, why couldn't you just tell your family that you quit the army? And, I don't know exactly why, because I don't feel like anyone would have really cared, except maybe this guy. But he doesn't really have a leg to stand on, did he? Because, I don't know. Maybe he'd say so, I don't know. Maybe he'd be like, oh, well, you have the opportunity and I don't, or some shit like that, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, he couldn't join the Navy. He really wanted to join the Navy. For those of you who don't know, in the UK, there's this city called Portsmouth. It's like a port, and it's a city, and it's where the Royal Navy is docked most of the time. And he went to university there, and he had a phase where after he got, well, not even kicked out because he was never in it, but after he failed to join the Navy, he would just go back and forth to Portsmouth all the time. And I don't know what he would do there, just wander around and look at the ships and stuff. Like, it's a bit sad, really. I don't know, kind of pathetic. Yeah, he went through a phase where he was kind of crazy, to be honest. He has, like, there's mental illness, so there's a lot of that in my family. And this guy had, like, bipolar disorder. He got, like, diagnosed with that, and it wasn't, like, too bad, but it was pretty bad. Like, he was a bit nuts, but it wasn't, like, awful. And he ended up getting a job as a prison guard. And this is all before I was born, by the way. This is in, like, the 90s, I guess, the 80s or 90s. And so most of this information comes from other people in my family, mainly my mum. I actually called my mum before I made this video, like just to do, like, an interview or, like, get some research and stuff, and, like, just verify some of the facts of this video. So, if something sounds unbelievable, and I'll cover this in just a second, but if you're like, oh, that's not true, well, blame my mum, don't blame me, but this guy got a job at a prison, and when I called my mum, one of the things I asked her is, what prison did he work at? And apparently he worked at, like, a young offenders prison, and it's like a young offenders prison, it's like, it's not a proper prison, but it's just for young people, and the idea, I guess, is that they might change their life, but they never do, to be honest. And this guy was a guard there. And he was actually on the floor, patrolling and stuff and working with the prisoners. And he got fired. I don't know if he got fired. I'm pretty sure he got fired from that job. And the reason he got fired, I was always under the assumption, is because he snuck in, like, pornographic magazines to the prisoners, which is a pretty disturbing image considering most of them are probably teenagers. Like, I'm pretty sure he should be in there alongside them in the cells, but I always thought that was the case. And I called my mum and I asked if that's true, and she basically said that it might not be true. And I was like, what do you mean? Why is it not true? And like, where did you even get this information? And basically it came to, like, that she basically just completely made it up, and it probably isn't true at all. So yeah, I don't know. Like, my whole this is why I don't trust or have association with people in my family, is they just make shit up. But I could have left that in the video, but I didn't. So that's how I'm trustworthy. But yeah, anyway, either way, whether it was for that or some other crap, I mean, he was losing his mind anyway, so it's not even, to me, it's not out of the question that this did happen. And he got fired from that job, or he left. And he was on some kind of, like, bipolar medication for a while, but he went off them. And then his, like, wife, because this guy somehow had a wife, believe it or not, she ended up, like, leaving him over that. She was like, if you take your pills, I'll stay with you, but if you don't, if you stay off them, then I'm gonna leave you. And he chose to stay off them. And to me, that's crazy. Like, I mean, to be honest, if my wife told me, look, do this or I'm going to leave you, I'd do anything. I'd shove a cattle rod up my arse, to be honest, if that's what it took to get a wife. But this guy apparently thought that the pills were too much, so he went off them, and he really went off the deep end after that. He went through this phase where he would, like, carry around a copy of Mein Kampf with him everywhere he went, like a paperback edition of Mein Kampf, and I don't know what I asked my mum, like, what did he even do with it? Like, did he this is like the 90s, so I wasn't born at this point, and even if I was way too young to remember, and I probably wouldn't have been around him anyway, to be honest. But I don't know, like, I asked, like, did he read it? Did he do anything with it? And apparently he just carried it around. I really don't know what he was thinking. But anyway, one day he went on the Isle of Wight ferry. If you don't know, the Isle of Wight is a little island near England, and there's a little ferry that goes back and forth. And he went on there, and he had Mein Kampf with him, and he was dressed up as like a naval officer, or like I guess he still wasn't over the navy thing, and so he dressed up as a naval officer. You know, he had this like coat and like shoes and stuff, and like the hat, and he ended up getting arrested, like actually like detained and stuff, for impersonating a naval officer was the charge. And I don't know if that's a crime. This is all from my mum, and my mum doesn't know a lot about this kind of stuff, I guess. But yeah, I mean that's something, I guess. Like, that's a low point, you know. I feel like I've had some pretty low points in my life, but that's a bad situation to be in, I feel like. And he ended up becoming a regular police officer after that. He was just like a normal policeman. I don't know how you go through all that and you still can be let into the force, but I guess, like, I don't know, desperate times, I guess, I don't know. And I remember, like, as a kid, he would always show off this kind of crap. Like, he'd talk about, like, how, like, and I feel like a lot of these stories were probably made up, because he'd talk about how he'd, like, chase some guy through people's houses, and, you know, he, like, threatened to tase people and stuff, and it's like, he clearly thought, like, he was cool and stuff, and I was just a little kid, and there were other little kids in my family who would kind of ask him this stuff, and he clearly loved the attention and stuff, and you know, you can't really hate on him for that, I guess. But this guy, some of the stuff he would do would be pretty annoying, to be honest, because as I got older, he talked to me a lot about history. He studied history at university, and he would talk to me about history all the time, and he'd be like, well, not all the time, but whenever I'd see him, which would be like once a year, maybe once every 2 years at most, to be honest, because Peter, like, everyone in my family hates this guy. Like, no one likes this guy at all. People are always just complaining about him, and I, like, for good reason, to be honest. It might not sound like it from everything I've talked about so far. Like, he sounds crazy, but he doesn't sound like a bad person necessarily, but he is kind of a dick, to be honest. Like, one time I remember he was talking to me about George Washington's teeth, and he was like, do you know what material these teeth were made out of? And I said, I didn't know, so I just guessed, and I said, well, maybe wood. And he was like, he just didn't say anything, he just stared at me. And I thought, well, that must be wrong. So I said, maybe metal. And he was like, no, wood, ha ha ha. You know, and I was just thinking, you dick. And I looked it up later, years later, I just happened to see this. And it turns out it's like a well-known myth, and it's not even true. Like, his teeth weren't even made of wood, so it's like doubly sad. It's like, you're trying to prove your intelligence with like a 12-year-old child, and you're not even correct about what you're being a smartass about. Do you know what I mean? That's pretty sad. But apparently his area of expertise at university, or his area of study, I guess, was Russian history. And this is pretty annoying, to be honest, because whenever, like, we're together, like, as a family, somewhat, like, especially, like my grandparents will bring up the fact that this guy's, like, some expert on Russia. And I remember back in, I don't know, I might have to censor some of the things I say here, but back in February 2022, there was, like, a get-together, and this guy was talking about, like, how he has, like, some unique perspective on the situation in Ukraine. Can I say it? I don't know. And, like, he knows, like, what no one else knows, you know, and, like, he sees things a special way, you know. And, like, I was just thinking, you dick. Like, no, you don't, you know. And especially my granddad, like, one of my grandfathers is, because I'm very fortunate, all my grandparents are still alive. And one of my grandfathers was, is very, very, like, anti-Russia. Like, I talked about this in my Christmas video, and he's always complaining about Putin and stuff. And he was like, oh, but, you know, your Uncle Bob, I made up the name Bob, and he doesn't even, yeah, but he says stuff like, oh, Bob is, like, some expert on Russia. He sees things the way that no one else sees them and stuff. And it's like, let's be honest, how does he see things? He probably has the most, like, basic take on the situation. He's like just a basic, like, NATO expansion take, and he's probably thinking, like, anything that's not, like, the mainstream narrative to him is, like, some crazy red pill thing. And it's like, and I'm not even commenting what I think about that. This isn't political at all, but I'm just saying, like, what annoys me is people trying to act smarter than they are. Like, have a little bit of humility, do you know what I mean? And shut your bloody mouth too. Anyway, but that's him, and he's pretty annoying, but I barely see him, to be honest. I don't know, when's the last time I saw him? I guess, like, last Christmas, not this Christmas, but, like, Christmas 2022. So yeah, like, over a year ago now, and I'm perfectly happy to keep it that way. And I don't think I'm going to see him over this Easter, and I really, like, I don't care for this guy. Yeah, he's pretty annoying. But someone I see even less is another person I'm not related to, but this guy's like an in-law, I guess. This guy's like my uncle-in-law. I'm not even going to bother giving this guy a fake name, because I don't even use them, but this guy is married to my aunt, or was, I should say, was married to my aunt for a while. I remember they met at university. My mum was telling me and because again, I wasn't around for this, but they met at university. And this guy, ever since like day one, apparently was a huge pothead. Like he smoked a lot of weed, and the result of that was it basically like fried this guy's brain. This guy's brain was completely like rotted to the core. You know, I know a lot of people smoke weed and stuff, and I don't smoke weed, and I don't approve of it. I don't think, like, I'm not a scientist. I don't know if it's good for you, but I don't think it's good. I mean, just use your common sense. But obviously it's not good for you. And yeah, like whenever we'd be around this guy, even like later on in life, like all his hair fell out. He's completely bald. You know, the Norwood Reaper really came for this guy. And I'm not saying that's like related to the weed, but I'm just saying like he looked like an egg. He had a really shiny head, like really shiny. Like you could see yourself in the reflection of it. And he would always be tired, and he'd always feel ill. He's like, oh, I need to go for a lie down. And he would never go out anywhere. It's like if we were at like someone's house, he'd be there. But if we went out for the day somewhere to like visit someplace, he would never come because he'd always be like staying in. And my aunt would be like, oh, he just doesn't feel very well and stuff. And it's just like, oh, give me a break. Anyway, but he was like a very irresponsible person. His job was being a gardener. But he'd never do any bloody work. He would just work through like contracts and stuff. Like people would, he didn't work for someone. He was like his quote unquote own boss, you know. And people would like hire him. They'd call him out to work on their gardens or whatever. But he would never get any call outs because he'd never like advertise, I guess, because he was so lazy. And I guess to get him straightened out, my aunt decided that they'd have a daughter together or a child. I mean, you don't choose what the gender is, but they decided they'd have a kid together, and they ended up having a daughter. That's kind of the worst bit of the situation. I think this whole situation, and I'll get into the main meat of this in just a second, but this situation is kind of like, it wouldn't even be that bad if they didn't have a daughter. And you know, I think having a kid involved in these kind of domestic disputes, it's always bad, you know. And it's like you really need to know who you're dealing with before you have a kid in regards to your partner, because it's really not fair to have a kid and like not set them up for success. And like, I'm not like, a lot of it isn't in your control, but it's like, you know, there's genetic factors that hold a kid down a lot of the time or push them up, and then there's their, you know, family situation as well, and that like accounts for probably less than genetics. But like how you're raised also has an impact on how you'll be later in life. And it's like, if you can't control genetics, at least put the odds in their favor with that, you know. But they don't, you know. I see people, families having kids, people who definitely should not be having kids, having children. And I wouldn't even really care if these people didn't get forced on the rest of us, you know. And that's another thing, like aeroplanes and people who bring kids on airplanes and stuff. I just can't, like, really, kids. I do not like kids. I have to be honest with you. I don't like kids. I know people talk about like having kids and stuff, and you know, like the purpose of life is to have loads of children and stuff. And I don't know, maybe for some people, but not for me. I cannot stand them. I gotta be real with you guys. I'm never gonna lie to you guys. I do not like children. I mean, this is my cousin, I guess. This daughter they had. She's like 10 years old now. She's fine. I guess maybe it's fat because it's family. I don't know. But generally, especially really young kids like toddlers, and you know, once they get to 10, they're fine, I guess. But when they're toddlers, they're little demons running around, let me tell you. They had this daughter with the plan of straightening this guy out. This is my mum's theory, and this is my mum's sister, my aunt. But she's like quite a bit younger, you know, than my mum and all my mum's other siblings. They had all these other kids, and then they had my aunt, and I don't know if she was an accident, but they had her like 10 years later. Like there's this huge age gap with all of my like relatives, because this is the youngest kid, and she was basically, my mum says, and I obviously I wasn't around for any of this, but my mum says that she had like favourable treatment, and you know, with youngest siblings, like that's definitely a thing. Maybe it's a stereotype, but you know, stereotypes come from somewhere, and I think younger siblings generally do get favourable treatment for whatever reason, and the middle child usually gets ignored. And obviously I'm an only child, so I just can't relate to that at all. I don't know. I can't comment on that. But yeah, my mum kind of holds a grudge against my aunt. Like they don't get along. This is why I said there's like rivalries and factionalism and stuff, and a lot of people vying for the attention of their elders and stuff, like siblings and stuff. And like, yeah, that's an issue. But that's kind of what I was talking about, like with my aunt and my mum. They don't get along, but they won't openly say they won't get along. And this is something with women as well. You don't see this with men really, is that men will openly compete with each other for whatever. I mean, we in the black pill space talk about dating a lot of the time, but it's not even just dating. Men will just compete for resources, full stop, very openly. Like they'll fight each other physically, or they'll, you know, if it's a corporate setting, they'll, you know, compete with each other over like a promotion or something. Whereas women compete a bit differently. They don't cooperate entirely, but they compete by making it look like they all are cooperating with each other. Like you see these videos, these ridiculous videos of like some of the ugliest women you've ever seen. saying they're like 10s. They're like, how would you ladies rate yourself? And they're all like, I'm a 10, I'm a 10, I'm a 10. And it's like, you're not, you know. It's like that Lizzo thing. People talk about Lizzo, and they're like, and women are like, oh, Lizzo's so beautiful. And then as a man, the response is like, okay, well, I think you look like Lizzo. And they get offended. And it's like, well, if she's beautiful, why is that a problem? And the reason is because they know full well that these sub 5 women aren't beautiful at all. They're not 10s. They're not even close to it. But the reason they say it is because they all make an appearance of cooperation with each other, which as a whole brings women up. It elevates. If all women agree, they're like, we're all 10s. It brings up their value on the sexual marketplace. So let's say that, as an analogy, let's say there's like medical companies. Let's say there's 5 medical companies that are all selling a drug, right? And this drug costs about, I don't know, $2 to make a box of pills, I don't know, right? And let's say all 5 of these companies get together, and they all have a monopoly. They don't let anyone else make this this drug. It's not, you know, they lobby and stuff, which is basically just a fancy word for corruption. And they put some bill in place that no one else can make this drug except them. And this does happen in real life, by the way. And what they'll do is then they'll say to each other maybe, hey, look, this costs about $2 to make a vial of these pills. Let's say we'll charge $50. Let's set that as the market price, and we'll all agree to cooperate. That's what women do, right? They all agree. We'll say we're all 10s, and therefore our value goes up, right? Whereas men are more like traditional competition between businesses, where they'll try and bring the price down to compete with each other. Men will try and eliminate the competition, whereas women will try and cooperate. And it's not that women don't compete with each other. It's just that by making it look like they compete, they actually, by showing off the fact that they do compete, they'll bring their market value down, right? I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I was talking about my mum having a grudge on my sister, and my point is, I kind of got to take things she says about this with a pinch of salt. You know, my mum can be a very bitter person, as I'll get to in a minute, but my mum's theory on them having this daughter is that my aunt wanted to straighten out my uncle-in-law and have him then become more responsible and take care of the kid. And like I said, my mum is obviously bitter and take this with a column of salt, to be honest. But I think she's actually right about this, because it just makes sense, you know, and there's no way any sane, rational person, and I know we are talking about women here, but there's no way that any sane, rational person, even if it is a woman, would look at a man like my uncle-in-law and think that guy is fit to raise a kid. There's no way. She obviously thought he was going to change after this kid was born, and spoiler alert, he didn't. You know, it's like when people have failing marriages. I mean, it basically is when people have failing marriages, because that's basically what happened. And to try and save it from divorce, they have a kid. It's like, it's not fair to the kid. You know, this kid is not, it's like people say, a dog isn't just for Christmas, a kid isn't just for saving a divorce. You know, and I know I said I didn't like kids earlier, and I stand by what I said, you know, but it's still not fair to the kid. You know, and I was a kid once, and they are human. You know, a kid is not just something you can have a passing interest in. It's like, oh, maybe this will save our marriage. No, this is a new life you're bringing into the world. You need to do it responsibly, and you can't be having a kid with some weed-smoking moron who can't even hold a damn job. But, you know, that's my piece. Anyway, to no one's surprise, this marriage ended in absolute disaster. He ended up cheating on her, which is crazy to me that this guy even has the ability to, or he even has the capacity to cheat. And I don't mean from a moral perspective. I mean he looks probably something like this, I'd say. This is a good approximation of what he looks like. His head is slightly less cylindrical, but no less bald. I mean, there are generally probably more strands of hair in my arsehole than there is on this guy's head, right? And this guy ended up cheating on her via a swingers website, which is not even something that I knew existed. I knew swingers are a thing, but I didn't know there were whole websites dedicated to them. Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised with the amount of degenerates in the world. But anyway, and swinging is like, basically, I can make a whole video on like swinging and like polyamorous relationships and that kind of stuff, and I probably will. I'm not going to get into it here, but basically this guy was keeping it a secret from his wife, from my aunt, and she found out, and the way she found out is actually she had a friend whose husband, I guess, was also on this website, and then he cheated on his wife via the website, and the wife found out somehow, some other unrelated way, and was then looking on the website, and I don't really know why she was looking on the website. The whole situation sounds kind of fishy to me. But either way, she was looking on the website, and she just happened to see this guy on the website. She happened to see my uncle-in-law on the website, and then recognized him. And she was like, oh, that's. And then she told my aunt, and then she found out, and it was this whole situation. And I don't know like how many women he cheated on her with, but given the fact he had a profile on this website and was continually doing this, I'm talking about this. I've always kind of made because the way my family talks about this, they always talk about it making the assumption that he was cheating on her with loads of people. For all I know, he never had any success, but the fact he was even looking is obviously like not good, for considering you're married and you have a kid. But I was like thinking, like, how is this guy managing to cheat? I just realized just now as I'm recording, like, it's possible he was just like, imagine that it's possible he just had no success at all. And that's so brutal. Imagine that, like, trying to cheat on your wife because she probably doesn't have sex with you anymore, and then you don't even manage to get any kind of success on the app at all, on this website at all, and then your wife finds out and you have to get divorced. That is the most brutal thing ever. That's something that would happen to me. Not that I would ever cheat on anyone, but I mean, like, just the worst luck. I have the worst luck, and I guess it kind of doesn't run in the family because I'm not related to this guy, but I guess it just leeches off everyone in my family. I don't know, it rubs off on people. But yeah, ever since then, I mean, this was a few years ago, and ever since then, my aunt and her daughter, who, like I said, she's like 11 probably now, 11, 12 I guess, maybe, ever since then they've just, I mean, she's kind of had a midlife crisis herself, my aunt, and they're always jetting off to all over the world to, like, I don't know, they went to like the Seychelles, like these islands and stuff, and they went to the Maldives and they flew on a plane there, and then they're making posts on social media being like, oh, we're in this lovely area of the world and it's going underwater because of the use of fossil fuels. And it's like, how did you get there? How are you any better? And she's like, oh, we need to raise awareness and stuff. And there was this one thing they did. This was pathetic. They went to this, I don't know, they went on holiday somewhere and they were on this boat and they were going like whale spotting. And apparently there were like loads of boats looking, and they all found a whale, and all these boats converged on the whale. And apparently the whale was in distress. And this story is just such bullshit for so many reasons. It's like, the only reason like anyone in my family knows about this is because she posted it on social media, but she didn't post any of the photos she took. She was like, I'm deliberately not posting the photos because I don't want to raise awareness for this. And it's like, first of all, okay, just don't make a post then. You don't need to make an update post telling people that you're not going to post the photos. Believe me, no one cares. You get like 3 likes on each of your posts, one of which is from your mum. People do not care. Okay, that's the first thing. Second of all, so you went whale watching, you went diving with the whales, you took photos, you did all this stuff, but you don't want to raise awareness because it's bad what they do to whales. It's like, they're hardly harpooning the whales, they're just going to look at them. The whale was in distress. It's like, how do you know? How do you know what the whale's thinking? And these are boats. These aren't submarines coming after the whale. The whale can dive down anytime it wants. I just think the whole situation was so ridiculous, and that sums up a lot of the women in my family and the way they act. They're all very virtue signaling, attention seeking, look at me, look how good of a person I am. And that's something women will do a lot. That, for women, that's the equivalent of looks maxing in women, is virtue signaling. They'll try and make themselves look like such a good person. And it's sick, it really makes me sick, because it's not true. None of it is true. You're not a good person. And you're posting this stuff like you are, and it's just not true at all. And on this same holiday, they were off on some stupid all-inclusive resort somewhere. And apparently, like, her daughter, so my cousin, I guess, or niece, I don't even know what relation this is, got pushed out of the way from the serving bar by some Russian tourists. And the way she told us, because these are all, the way I gather this information is from being at family gatherings and stuff, and people sit around telling these stories, and I don't care, to be honest, but over the years I've heard some drivel coming out of people's mouths. Let me tell you, my family, their arses would probably be jealous of the amount of shit that comes out of their mouth. And she's telling us this story, oh, these Russian tourists pushed her out of the way. And it's like, why does it matter that they're Russian? Why is that a relevant detail that needs to be brought up? You're clearly only bringing it up to gain sympathy from other people because the anti-Russian sentiment in my family. That's all you're doing, And I know I'm bringing up Russia like a weird amount of times in this video, but it's really, like, it really is everywhere. I remember at my old church I used to go to back in my hometown, like, my priest would talk about Russia and Putin and how bad he was, and it's like, what are you even, like, why are you bringing that up? Like, how is this relevant to anything? You know what I mean? And stuff. And he talked about, like, how he didn't support the invasion of Iraq. Like, back when Saddam Hussein was in charge, my priest was like, oh, I supported it back in the day, but I regret that now. I don't support it anymore. And it's like, okay, well, you're making basically the exact same mistake, but anyway, whatever. It's not even the point, right? And again, I'm not taking sides. I don't want anyone to spin this politically. Like, if you're about to leave a comment telling me why I'm stupid politically, you can keep it to yourself, to be honest with you, because I'm not making a comment about politics. I'm just saying, right, there's no place for politics in family discussions. I don't want to say there's no place for politics necessarily in church, but generally there's certainly no need to bring up Putin in like some random church service. Do you know what I mean? It's just my opinion. No disrespect to my priest or whatever, I'm just saying, right? Yeah, to talk a bit more about the rivalry between my mum and my aunt. I remember about a year ago, I talked about this in some other video when I was talking about at my university, there's like these lizards that they take care of, or well, don't take care of, but that's a whole other point. Don't even get me started on that. But I was talking about how I came up to my university for an open day because it's quite a drive, and from my hometown to my university it's quite a distance. And so I came out for this open day where the university basically just shows off to prospective students, hey, this is what the university's like, you probably want to come here, and they try and advertise it basically. But that's not even relevant really to the story. But I was coming up for this university open day with my mum. Basically, like, after it was all said, we had the whole day after it was all said and done. There was nothing, weird about it, apart from the reptiles, but that's a whole other point. But on the way back home, my mum got a call from her mum, my grandmother, who's the mother to both my mum and my aunt. My grandmother was like annoyed at my mum, and she'd gotten a call from my aunt, and basically my aunt was annoyed that me and my mum hadn't come to see them on the way. And it's like, we have to go massively out of our way to see these people, but instead of being an adult, and this is what I meant at the start of the video when I said like man children, or women children, I don't know. Anyway, this is what I meant when I said that. It's like, if this happens to you, first of all, you have no right to be annoyed about this, because you didn't make your wishes clear that you wanted this to happen. You can't be annoyed at someone for not doing something you didn't tell them to do. And I know that's a trademark of women, that's like their favorite thing to get annoyed about, but seriously, there's that. And then to not even, so you're annoyed at something someone's done, not even to tell them, but then to tell your mum at the age of like 40 or however old you are to do this. It's ridiculous, it really is insane, And my mum got a call basically from my grandmother complaining, being like, oh, you didn't go and see them and stuff. And my mum basically told her where to shove it, which I was in support of, to be honest. And I don't get involved in family drama, really, to be honest. But this situation was just so crazy. Just the entitlement, just the entitlement. And recently, this is just after I'd got back from Australia, actually. If anyone remembers, I did that like a year ago. And because I have family in Australia, and me and my mum went to visit them. And I also worked there for a bit, but that's irrelevant. But basically, my mum later got a text message from my aunt saying like, oh, we see going halfway around the world is no problem, but going a bit out of your way to see your sister is too much to ask. And it's just like, shove it up your ass, And this is what I mean when I said, if my family does stuff to me that's like, I feel like I've been wronged, I just wouldn't associate them with them anymore, And I get it's more complicated than that, I get it's not that simple all the time. But obviously, like, my mum and my sister, like I said, they don't openly fight. They very rarely do that. Like, this situation is probably the most open conflict they've ever had, I think, or at least when I've been alive. I'm sure as kids they had more open conflict, but like, if this happened to me, because my mum and my aunt obviously still talk, and it's like this never happened basically. If that happened to me, I would just block, and I wouldn't talk to these people anymore. If I had a sister who said something like that to me, I'd tell them to go fuck themselves probably, and just block them, because it's just, I don't need to tolerate this behavior. Like, I've had stuff like that happen to me, and I'm not going to get into that because I kind of want to wrap up the video, but I've had like older members of my family do stuff to me or say stuff to me. That makes it sound like I've been like molested or something. I don't mean like that. I just mean, like, I've had them talk to me in a very demeaning way, and you see this a lot of the time with boomers, is they think they can talk to people like they're dirt, and they can totally insult them. And I'm not a confrontational person, but I am a person who doesn't take shit from people. And what that means is, if someone is insulting me, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to confront them, because I am a pussy in person. I don't deny that. I'm not trying to act tough, but I just won't talk to them anymore. If they're at a family function, I'm not going to go, okay? It's me or them. And I've done this with loads of people in my family. Well, not loads, but anyone who steps out of line. I've been at weddings and stuff, or a wedding where, like, this guy, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about this, but I was at a wedding where this guy was walking around, and this guy, I think he has, like, polio. I don't know what's wrong with him. He's an older guy, and back in the day, these kids had, like, polio, and it fucks you up for life. This guy's, like, head is permanently, like, craned forward. Like, I don't know, like, he looks like he's always looking at his feet, but it's just his bone structure. And there was this wedding. These people were getting married. I don't know who was getting married, but I was dragged along to this. I was like 15, 16, I guess. This is just before COVID, actually. And there was this, like, hallway, and it was like this is like the party after the wedding. There was loads of people, walking around like farts in the bloody wind, right? No one's looking where they're going. And this guy is walking around, and obviously, like, it's pretty difficult for this guy to see where he's going. So he's, like, looking up. I stand out the way of this guy, and I see him, first of all, and I don't know what this guy's relation is to me. There's a lot of people at this wedding. The first thing I think to say to him is, like, chin up, mate, it won't be much longer. But no, I didn't even know, but apparently he did have a medical problem. But I stood to the side of the thing, and he had this, like, walking stick. And I stood to the side of the hallway so he could walk past. And apparently he felt like I was still in his way, even though I totally wasn't. So he didn't even say a word to me. This guy can speak. He's not, he has a disability, but he can speak. But instead of speaking to me, apparently because I'm like a young person. These older people think young people are so entitled and they need to respect their elders and whatever other crap. So this guy has his walking stick and he basically just taps me or like knocks the side of my leg and points, like jabs me and then points over to the other side of the wall like I'm a dog, like pointing at me. And I want to say to this guy, go to hell. I mean, you probably are going to pretty soon. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Treating me that way just because I'm a young person. Treat me with some bloody respect. And I think it's just and I'm all for respecting elders. I'm for respecting people, but respect goes two ways, and you can't treat people like that. You can't treat people like they're dirt. And I haven't seen that guy since. He could literally be dead for all I know, and I couldn't care less, to be frank with you. And I don't care for him. I don't care. And I've had similar experiences with other people in my family, and I don't care. I don't have hard feelings. I don't hate them. I just move on because life is literally too short, and life as a sub-5 is hard enough without your family breathing down your damn neck. Well, this guy wouldn't be breathing down your neck, he'd be breathing down your ass, probably, where his face is positioned, but that's not my point. Anyway, I apologise for being late on the upload. Yes, I was sick, which is it's unfortunate for me. I'm actually getting possibly nasal surgery or like septum surgery. I think I might have a deviated septum, but that would be its own video if I do that. I do have some announcements I want to make before the video ends. So one of them is I'm actually going on holiday. I haven't talked about this. I made a community. I mentioned this in a video actually. I did. I do remember. I was going to say I didn't mention it, but I did. I was talking about Berlin, and I was like, I'm actually going to go to Berlin for a holiday just for myself for like 2 nights. And I booked that, and I'm also going somewhere else. I'm not going to say where, but I'm going to another city in Europe. I'm doing like 2 nights there, 2 nights in Berlin. So it'll be a surprise. I'm going to vlog the whole thing. I'm going to video it and make a little video of it. We'll see if it comes out alright. And I've also decided I want to do IRL live streaming again because I did that in Liverpool and I had a lot of fun. And I had a lot of fun doing that in Liverpool, so I'm probably going to do that again. And I'm going to do 1 in each city, so I'm going to do 2 IRL live streams. So if you missed the first one, don't worry too much about it. It will be in European time. But I'm going to say, I think this might change. I'll make community posts closer to the day. But it should be the 10th of April and then the 13th of April, maybe? Or it might be the 11th or the 14th. I'll see. It'll be like around the 11th or 12th of April. I'll do these live streams. So anyway, that's pretty much it. So wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And I will see you next time. Bye.